All I keep hearing is that photography is dead. And the problem is, there's a truth to that. I'm going to go through all the genres of photography that are either dead today or are going to be dead soon. But rather than just giving you a list of doom, I'm going to explain firstly why we're in this position, and then secondly, we're going to have a little look at how we get out of it. Now, the problem we have with when people go, oh, photography's over, it's dead, is that they're living in the 1980s. So, in the 80s, in photography's heyday, everything was amazing. Money was big, budgets were great, lifestyle was perfect. It was the golden era, especially in the commercial world, of photography. That is not to say, before someone jumps in here, well, it's not like that. And a photographer still out-earns a doctor in the UK. My friends that are doctors make a considerably lower salary than me, and it's rare that I kill someone at work. So it's a pretty cushy deal. I'm not complaining. We make good money, we have a fun job, and the lifestyle's pretty cool. However, it is not anywhere near what it was in the 80s. In the 80s, to be a professional photographer, to be a successful photographer, there were some prerequisites. One, you needed a lot of money because you were shooting 5x4, 8x10 transparencies, you needed like 6400 dual packs, or you were shooting weddings and all the portraits on 6.7, 6.45 medium format cameras. You had to buy the film. It was a real rigmarole and expense. Today, if you want to shoot the billboard campaigns I shoot, you can buy a 5D Mark II and a lens for about £300. Most people could afford that with a small amount of saving. Not the case in the 80s. The technical skill level required back then was higher, kind of. In order to take a photograph, you had to know how to use a camera. That education came at a price, and it was slow to learn because you were using film. You couldn't jump on YouTube like I did and just learn your whole craft in a couple of years. You had to really go out and assist and do this, live in people's hallways. And even someone, an assistant, had to be able to load rolls of film and not mess it up, which sounds straightforward. Most photographers today couldn't load a 5.4. They also had to set the camera up. They had to make sure the shutter was cocked at the right point between taking the dark side out so you didn't accidentally expose the film and just end up with a black negative. There was a real technical skill to it. Now, obviously photography has not changed. There's still a technical skill to it, but you can learn it quickly and you can get instant feedback. Not only that, cameras are so good today on full auto mode, you can get a great photograph. You can't get a great photograph on a 8x10 or 5x4 camera with any automation. It is all technically done. You had to know how to meter properly, and you had to be certain you knew, because yes, I meter my shots, but I get some instant validation on my tether chart. I'll go to the tether card. I go to my tether card, I look at it and go, yes, that is correct. That is right. I was correct. Or I'll go, ooh, slightly mismetered that, didn't I? Let's turn it down a smidge. The skill set required then was a technician's job. The finances to get into it were lofty. Today, the skill set required to be a photographer is a creative pursuit, and the money to get into it is a low barrier to entry. So here's all the ones that have disappeared. Let's start with press photographers. Being a press photographer is gone. It's done. It is a nigh on impossible genre to make money in. Of course, there are the outliers. And do you know what these outliers have in common? They are absolutely brilliant. Because back in the day, to be a press photographer in the 80s, you had to be able to get perfect exposure, nail focus, and get a good composition. Blind, no back of screen to check that you definitely got the shot. You just had to get it. Today, not so difficult. You can use your phone, it is good enough. And to be honest, a phone picture today is as good as the average press photographer of back in the day, because the skill was really getting the people organised, make sure you got the right stuff in it. And there's that little cheeky thing that every press photographer used to do, especially if they worked for a local paper, they'd go and leave their car somewhere in the background of the shot. That was something people did in the UK anyway. You'd always leave your car in the background, but look, there's my car on the front page. Today, the amazing press photographers, they get paid because their images are so groundbreaking that they sell papers. But also, there's not many papers around anymore. My local paper was twice a day and once on a Saturday. It's now a website with so many pop-up ads that no one visits it. It's changed. Editorial work, you used to be able to make a living doing editorial work. Not anymore. Nowadays, it's seen as the thing you do to sort of build your portfolio, or, maybe it's a bit of good marketing. So, I shot the cover of this. But really, in the commercial world, when someone hears you shot some editorial, they go, oh, you're not good enough for commercial stuff. You're just doing editorial, just magazines. That's back in the 80s, not the case at all. I've got a list. Family portraits. When I started out, it was the end of the era of the family portrait studio. Back then, you'd go to a studio, you'd either get a free sitting or whatever, and then you get prints. You'd come home with prints, you'd spend $3,000 on prints, and you'd get a perfectly exposed, sharp image. It looked beautiful. It was great. However, nobody wants that anymore. It's clinical, it's clean, everyone's got it in the house, it's no different. They have died. They've shut down in their droves. You can still make money as a portrait photographer for families, but in order to do so, your portraits have to be so good and so interesting that people are willing to pay for it. And 99% of people taking family portraits take very boring family portraits. To make a lot of money, you have to be really darn good. Pack shots. This is where AI's come and killed you. When I started, people would have like a shed, like a little outhouse in the UK. They'd have a studio set up in there and they'd do pack shots. And then it was decimated by pack shot factories. A pack shot factory is a place where there's like 10 photographers, 20 editors, and they just hammer through it at a really cheap price. It was a very lucrative business. And of course, the one-man band can't compete because they can't be cheap enough because they can't do the volume. Now the pack shots can't compete because AI can do it. And it's gone, it's just done. Nobody wants pack shot photos doing like that anymore. They can just take a picture and get it sorted in-house for much cheaper and without the hassle. Now, passport photos is an interesting one and a great one. I had a friend who had a little studio and the majority of his income was bought by footfall coming in for passports, visas and driving licenses. And it was booming. He made you wouldn't believe how much money you'd make doing that. But then I did my passport recently and I was in a rush, didn't have time to go there, so I took a selfie on my phone. It was automatically uploaded and approved straight away rather than sending a print in to see if it gets approved. Just done and dusted there and then. Nice and easy. There is, however, still a trade in passport photos, but it is the really high end. It's people who want to make sure that that photo in their passport looks great for years to come. That when they put their driving license down in front of their social group, everyone's like, oh, that's a good photo. There is still but you have to be, so it's not just a case of going, yes, I technically know how to do a passport photo that gets signed off every time. I know how to do that. And beyond that, I can make you look great within the parameters that a passport photo allows. That's where it is now. Now, stock photography is a really interesting one because it's very similar to AI. So we had the .com boom and then everyone went online and everyone needed photographs for their website, but they couldn't afford a full shoot. So they bought stock photography and everyone did it. And then all the websites looked the same. They looked generic and it was just boring and it meant nothing. It was heartless, just an empty shell. So the value of stock plummeted. Now I get offered to be on various stock libraries from some quite prestigious names. And I say no. My deal is if you want my work on your library, you have to do all the work. I'll give you the drive, but you've got to name it, archive it, all that stuff. I haven't got time because the time put into it isn't worth the money back out of it. Just isn't. And I've been in archives in the past, and again, only when they've had these rules, like they've agreed to it, because it's dead. You cannot work enough hours in the day to make money doing stock. Basic real estate. I've had friends who've done this for years, and they are all jobless. You go around these houses, you take photographs, you edit them and deliver them. Now, back in the days of film cameras, this was lucrative, and it's gone worse and worse and worse because digital cameras come out and then you get one guy at the letting agency who's a bit of a hobbyist, they've got your job because it's good enough. Now there's apps on phones that do these brilliant wide angle HDR shots. They're good enough because they're looking for technical execution of a shot and nowadays also digital measuring with lasers of the rooms. You have to draw like a whole floor plan and everything because the photography alone isn't worth it. The only time you can make money doing this is if you live in a wealthy area or near a wealthy area and you photograph those multi-million pound properties, not the £500,000 properties, the multi-million pound properties, because there, the staging, the styling, the whole thing matters. And they're willing to invest the money because the commission is good enough to make it worth your while. But generally speaking, not the one. Affordable headshots. I'm sure everyone's seen these horrific AI headshots going around at the moment. If you weren't gonna spend 750 quid on a headshot before, you're probably going for AI. So anybody doing affordable headshots is absolutely foobarred. It's died, it's done, it's over. People who don't value the headshot enough to pay good money for a good product are gonna use AI. Of course they are. And there's nothing you can do about it. You can't compete at that price point. So if you want to compete, you've got to be at that top end. So to fix any of these, as I'm sure you've noticed from the general thing, the industry has shifted from being a technician to being a creative. It is a different job today than it was in 2005. It is a different job today than when I started it. When I started this, you could still be a technician, but you can't anymore. You have to be a creative with a voice. The only way to make money as a technician, which is the general old sense of what this industry was, is to do something so complicated most people can't do it, or to shoot something so expensive most people can't do it. So here's a great example of how you can still live the 1980s lifestyle. Go and buy a Phantom, go and buy a Bolt robot, and do slow motion control shots. There's a barrier to entry of hundreds of thousands of pounds, and there's a technical skill barrier to entry which you just can't beat. That is a safe bit. My work, however, taking still images of things in like a graphic style, anybody can do it. I trade on my creative vision. I don't trade on my technical ability or my skill set or my camera. My camera's 5K, maybe 10K, I don't know. It's cheap, relatively. It's not a robot with a slow-mo Phantom on it, is it? It's accessible. And you could do with a £200 camera 90% of what you can do with my expensive camera. Where I try and add a bit of skill is where clients want things that defy physics, and I can do that, but they don't always understand it anyway. They don't realise that's what I'm doing, it just happens to be. Adding video to all of my jobs is somewhere where I add technical ability that within my photography realm currently isn't standardized. It's gonna go that way though. Eventually, every stills photographer will do motion and it will no longer be a technical thing I can offer. At the moment, it's technical and cost saving for them. They don't need a DOP, I can direct and shoot. You know, I've got some basic motion control equipment, stuff that moves the camera around and programs and all the rest of it. Again, a bit of a barrier to entry and a bit of a nicety. So what I do with my career constantly is I look at it and I go, right, what am I offering here? Am I offering a technical ability? If so, who else can do it? If it's anyone with a camera, I'm not offering that. It's just something I do. Am I offering a creative vision? Yes. Who else can do it? No one. Nobody has my creative vision apart from me. People can copy my style, but they don't have my creative vision. That is something I can trade on, but I have to work on it. It's not just go, oh, I'm a creative. I have to functionally work on being a creative on a daily basis. I'm constantly coming up with ideas and concepts and like trying to like weave them all together into something new that no one's seen before. That is where I focus my time. Not on gradients, dynamic range, the ultimate f-stop or any of that nonsense. It's on the creative, because all of that nonsense is just the basics. It's like turning up to work with shoes on. It's just the basics. It was the job in the 80s for a lot of people. Of course, there were still the creatives. I'm not poo-pooing 80s photographers. They just made loads and loads of money, the creative ones. But nowadays, the technician job is over. So if you're finding yourself in that position, ask yourself, what can I offer that isn't a technique that anyone can pick up? What can I offer that isn't so affordable but still needed that anyone can do it? That's what I think at the moment. Let me know your thoughts. See you soon. Bye-bye.